olfactory sense, olfactory sense, and one extra sense which Dr. Maria Montessori is stereognostic sense. Visual sense, which body organ is involved with this sense? Eye. And what are the attributes of visual sense? What the child exactly, color, shape, dimensions, all these things the child is getting from these surface textures. They can be rough and smooth, hot and cold, soft and hard. So these kind, and then weight also, light and heavy. Then gustatory sense, taste. Exactly, this is the sense of taste, and child can feel different taste through tasting jars. Then we have olfactory sense. Exactly, sense of smell. Child can feel smells through smelling bottles. Then we have auditory sense. What child feels? Child can hear different sounds and the variation in sound through tactile sense and muscular memory. And child can feel the different objects by their names, by their size, everything. But we cannot describe these things, but only we describe the name of the object. Child uses muscular memory in stereognostic sense. Now, list of the sensorial material you all know very well, but in fact I will ask you one material to repeat. Which material we use for the dimensions? Pink tower, cylinder blocks, very good. Which material we use to refine child's auditory sense? Exactly. So for your test, because you people have your written test tomorrow, so I am helping you people. Then characteristics of the material. The material is having both the things at a time. Identity and contrast. Identical, all four blocks of cylinder blocks are same, but when we take out or pull out the cylinder, they all are different. So this is called the identity and contrast. All the cubes in pink tower are pink, but they are contrasting in dimensions. Identical, they are identical in color. Then we have the material itself has a teacher that is called didactic material. Material is light in weight, material is light in color, material is scientifically made. So these are all the characteristics of sensorial material. Now there are two kinds of aims of sensorial education. One aim is direct aim, which you can see, which you can visualize. The child is mastering in that technique. Child can judge and feel the things. But indirectly, child is preparing for maths, for culture, for some other different subjects which are interrelated. Child is also getting the vocabulary, the words, big, small, tall, short, thick, thin. So there are all five subjects are interlinked. They all are interwoven. So that's why we cannot segregate any of the subject from each other. Now, how we give the presentations? What is the procedure? We give the presentation into 3 stages. What are these 3 stages? Exactly. The first is naming period. Then by the transposition we get the confirmation that the child is able to identify the object by its name or not. So that is the longest period, the second period, and the third period is confirmation period. We confirm whether the child has known the name of the object with the correct pronunciation or not. Child can point out the object with correct pronunciation. Child can call the object with the correct pronunciation. So in that way, sensorial material is also giving vocabulary. Most of the vocabulary which is used in our daily life, the action words and the adjectives. Most of the adjectives child is learning from the sensorial. Big, small, thick, thin. These are the qualities, and the word which show the quality of any object, that is called adjectives. So we cannot, take out or isolate any of the subject from 5 subjects in Montessori method. And definitely, our goal is to make the child intelligent. And if the child's senses are not refined, so how could it possible that the child is an intelligent person in his upcoming life? So if you want to make the child intelligent, give him all the presentations of sensorial education, whatever you learnt during the course, in this workshop. Take this in your mind. You are now have the responsibility to make the child intelligent and smart, not only a human being who can survive like any other person. Thank you.
How are you? Okay. So after listening EPL and sensorial, now it's my time to tell you about language. Quick off. Now, first of all, when we started our language day, this language term is basically derived from a Latin word which means lingua, which means tongue. And with the help of tongue, we are able to pronounce, to speak with the help of our vocal impressions. But if we talk about olden days, primitive men was used to communicate with the help of different sounds. Those sounds were related to the cries and shrieks of different animals, and those sounds were used to communicate between groups of people. When men wanted to move himself from one place to another place, then the need of the language, a single language arises, and then men decided to further move on to the language from shrieks and sounds. He moved to different aspects of language. The purpose of teaching language or having language in our surrounding, because this is man's own creature, and that is why man is called as a tool-making animal. And this language is the most important tool which he has made for himself, because he has to communicate between the groups of people. The major purpose of this language is to do the interaction. And this interaction is not possible without words. The words are basically the fusion of sounds. When different sounds fuse together, it makes words. And with the help of words, you can construct sentences. And those sentences we are using to do the communication in our day-to-day life. There are three aspects of language. The first one is the oral, the other one is the spoken, and the third one is written. Whatever the things you are doing in our daily life related to verbal communication, that is all oral, like singing of rhymes, doing different activities, story time, news period, question game. Those all comprises of oral aspect of language. But if you talk about spoken, in spoken there comes listening. And listening is all the ability which you can get up with the help of different words, different impressions which you have already stored in your mind. In reading element, you can just read out the impressions, the thoughts which another person has written. There are different people who use language in different ways. But in the Montessori environment, the child catches language from day one when he enters. Because a directress used to do different techniques she used to adopt to teach the child language, sometimes directly and sometimes indirectly. Like when he enters, you ask, "Good morning, how are you?" And these words basically enriches the child word power. Then we have the exercises of conversation, news period, question game, I Spy game, which helps the child in adopting the language and learning language in a good manner. If you talk about the indirect preparation, you have seen the EPL exercises. In the EPL exercises, the child gets the idea of about when the sponge gets inside the water, it gets heavy, light, empty, filled, right? And the names of different things the child learns in EPL, the general vocabulary. If you talk about sensorial, Mamalia just said about different dimensions, different adjectives he is going to learn with the help of sensorial exercises. So his word power enriches. Then language is all about teaching language. But if you talk about maths, teaching the child the numbers, giving names to the numbers, that comes in language. If you talk about culture, the names of different artists, the names of different scientists, the names of different musicians, animals, pet animals, wild animals, then different flowers, names of different vegetables, fruits, that comes in language. So language, you are not supposed to teach only directly with the child. You always give the indirect preparation first and then the direct preparation. This is the Montessori rule. If we focus into the language index, in the beginning we have started with the practical exercises which comprises of oral exercises. And those were conversation, stories, poems, rhymes and songs, and the vocabulary basket. Whenever you are teaching the children the stories, the poems, make sure that those stories and poems are based on reality. The reason is that the child's absorbent mind period goes on, and the child is quicker to adopt things. So you have to show those type of stories which gives moral to the child, some lesson to the child, because it will be helpful in his next like after crossing 6-year period, it will be more helpful. Then after completing the oral exercise part, we enter into the pre-reading games, and those were news period, question game, library corner, I Spy game, and which is also called as sound game, in which you are going to give the sound to the child, and the child is going to tell you the word beginning from that sound, which has various stages. This I Spy game, remember I have told you there are different stages. In stage 1, you put one object. In stage 2, you put contrasting objects at a time. In stage 3, you do the exploration of the indoor environment and the outdoor environment. Then in stage 4, you do the same you focus on the beginning, middle and the ending sound. Then in stage 5, you put two things together with the same beginning, but the ending sound is different. And in stage 6, you put the sound anywhere in the word, whether in the beginning time, whether in the middle part, or whether in the ending part. So after this oral exercises part, we enter into the writing portion. Writing involves two things. That is, your mechanical preparation should be there, and freedom to write should be there. Mechanical preparation means your hands must be prepared for holding the writing instrument. And again, this holding of a pencil, we indirectly prepare with the EPL exercises. You did holding of a spoon. You did the exercise of threading beads. You did the exercise of pegging a basket, zip frame, and so other ones, which indirectly prepares child's hand for writing, because writing is not easy. Holding of a pencil requires more mature movement. Your index finger, your middle finger, your thumb should be properly trained to hold the writing instrument. Then you are only able to do the writing. Otherwise, you have seen children, when if you give the children pencil early, sometimes they hold the pencil like this, sometimes they hold the pencil like this, sometimes they just put so much pressure on the pencil that the nips break. Why does it happen? Because we never focus on the indirect preparation of teaching the children how to hold the writing writing instrument, whether it is a color pencil, whether it is a lead pencil. If you talk about sensorial, the cylinder blocks teaches the child indirectly how to hold the writing instrument. When the children take out the cylinder from the socket, when he puts in, this is an indirect preparation. Then we have the exercises of the pin tower. You put the cubes in order, you hold the cubes with the help of your index finger and the thumb. So these exercises indirectly prepares the child for writing. But when the child reaches to the age of 4 to 4.5 years, we give him the presentation of metal inset, in which for the first time the child is holding a writing instrument in his hand. And I have shown you that we have 10 shapes of metal inset. We always give the easiest thing first, so I have done the presentation of the frame of the circle. There are 10 shapes like circle, square, triangle, pentagon, pentagon. Then we have the curvilinear triangle, we have the quatrefoil, we have the ellipse, we have the oval, we have the trapezium. So these 10 shapes are there. which teaches the child how to hold the writing instrument and how to do the tracing, how to do coloring. Because majority of us think that the coloring is the most easiest thing to do. When the child enters in the classroom, give him the paper, give him the color pencil. And you will watch that if you are making an apple, most of the time he will color out of the apple. Because he do not know what is the boundary in which he has to color. But once when you are done with the metal inset, he will come to know that he has to fill the lines inside one shape. So this writing metal inset is a direct preparation for teaching the child the writing. Then we have the sandpaper letters also, and in that you have seen we have vowels, consonants in two different colors. Did you remember that?
Yes.
Okay, what is the color of the vowels? Vowels. Blue. Vowels are in blue. Yes. And the consonants are in red. And the same color followed in movable alphabet. This movable alphabet is called as writing without writing. You have seen we were forming the words with the help of those alphabet, but we are not using any sort of pencil or a color pencil or a pen. So this is, the child is making words, he is writing, but he is not holding any sort of writing instrument. So this is writing without writing. Just recall your memory about the mathematics lecture which I have given to you. What we have learned, we are just going to give a quick review of mathematics. The very first thing that we learned that man's mind is a mathematical mind by nature. Right? This said by Pascal that man's mind is a mathematical by nature. So what is the first thing that we adult has to do, that we should not worry about how to give maths, in a sense that how the child catches the math. He has a tendency, he has a natural urge, his internal nature has designed accordingly that automatically he can understand the concept of the time, the concept of the space, the duration, the difference, the distance, near and far. All as because of the mind he has, that is called a mathematical mind. Maths is the name of exactness, actually what we are talking. We are giving the exactness about the things. He has a tendency to calculate. He has a tendency to add, subtract, multiplication and divide. But as if you have not given a proper method to the child to do these things, every man is going on his own cultural or in his own way. मासी भी तो एडप्ट करती है ना, बाजी पहले की क्या तरीके है? It means that is natural urge. I'm working 4 houses. बाजी मैं 4 घर काम करती हूँ, 600 रुपए लेती हूँ, इतने बन गए. This is the way she keep calculating whether the illiterate or a literate man is. It means it's a natural tendency. I have given this much, I have only this much. Even a little child who really not know about the word of subtraction, but can easily understand the things are getting less or increasing. So these concepts all has their already exist. This is what the reason. There are 2 powers of mind, that is imagination and abstraction. देखिए बात को समझिएगा. Imagination and abstraction. अच्छा, एक बात क्या कह दी इधर? What we said, man's mind is a mathematical by nature, and there is 2 powers of the mind, imagination and abstraction. Imagination is predominant, that is there. Imagination based on 2 things mainly. In initial stage, the first, what he sees, accordingly he images. What he listens, accordingly he images. Nothing else he is going to imagine in his mind. Like as I said, the liver duty is to make the blood, but the quality of the blood depends on the food and the water that child is taking in, and that quality of that water in the food is in the hand of an adult, and that is natural things. How many of you ask the liver to make the blood?
or to give the instructions to the liver to make it or not to make it, and this much components are required and this you have to stop. No, this is the same way. You never ask the brain for thinking. The work by nature of the brain is to think. But what he is going to think, that one has defined that what you show, what you speak. But that is in the hand of you, that what you speak and what you show. यहाँ तक बात समझ आ गई? जो बोलना है वो आपकी मर्जी. What you want to introduce to the child, you have to speak accordingly. Which you don't want, please never do in front of the child. Do think, as I said before, said crime by Dr. Montessori, that one is never do the things for the child which he is able to do by himself, and never do the things in front of the child which you don't want to do by the child, because automatically you can't. There is no stop button. Like what you do, what you say, that like a camera, as an absorbent mind is there, like a camera captures all the pictures. So when you're talking, there, as a man's mind is mathematical and power to imagine, and imagination is predominant. So what you talk, automatically that comes in relation, in a context of mathematics in the mind. And do kele leke aana, go and get 2 bananas. 1 dozen egg. How far your house is? I am living nearby you. It's a time of sunset. It's a time of sunrises. You took lot time inside of your washroom. This is what we are talking.